Listen carefully, friend, because what I am about to tell you is going to hurt you as much as it hurt me. My name is Robert Stevens. I am 68 years old, and just 1 week ago, I discovered that my 4 children, for whom I worked like a dog my entire life, are ungrateful brats who wouldn't give me even $100 to save my life. It all started on that cursed Tuesday, when I was sitting in the waiting room of Dr. Miller on Main Street in Los Angeles, with trembling hands holding a prescription that was worth more than my dignity. $2,800 a month for kidney medication. The doctor had explained it to me with that serious voice doctors use when the news is bad. Mr. Stevens, your kidneys are failing. Early-stage renal insufficiency. Without treatment, this will worsen rapidly. There I was, a man who for 25 years drove 18-wheeler trucks from Seattle down to Miami, who built a 2-story house with his own calloused hands, who never denied his children a single dime when they needed it, and I didn't have $800 to pay for that private consultation. After paying the doctor, I was left with $50 in my wallet until my pension day. $50, brother. What used to cost me 1 cheeseburger on the road. My legs were so swollen that my shoes barely fit. When I walked, I felt as if I were carrying sacks of cement tied to my ankles. The pain in my back was constant, as if a hammer were striking from the inside. But what hurt me most wasn't my body. It was realizing that I would have to ask my children for help. Me, who was always the one who solved everyone's problems. On the bus ride back to Omaha, Nebraska, I remembered the last words of my Clara 3 years ago, when diabetes was slowly taking her. We were at the county hospital. She had those tubes in her nose, thin as a sparrow, and she grabbed my hand with the strength she still had left. Robert, the kids love us, but everyone has their own life. Don't forget about yourself, old man. I told her not to talk nonsense. The children are always there for their parents when they need them. What an idiot I was, friend. What an idiot I was. The first blow came from Richard, my oldest son. I arrived at his shop, Stevens Brothers Auto, on Highway 101 on a Wednesday afternoon. There he was, in his blue coveralls stained with grease, attending to a client with a late-model Toyota pickup. I stood there like a beggar waiting for him to finish, watching him smile at the client, how he patiently explained the work. I waited for 30 minutes, brother. 30 minutes watching the son I raised work, when he finally approached me. His hands were still covered in oil. "What's up, Dad? Everything okay?" I explained about the doctor, the medication, that I needed help until my pension arrived. I didn't ask for much, just $200. $200 for the man to whom I gave $80,000 so he could open that very shop where he now had no time for his father. "Dad, do you see how much work there is? I have 3 mechanics to pay. The rent is $15,000 a month. The loan for the equipment, I can't right now. Find someone to lend it to you." That's what he told me, as if I were a stranger asking for spare change. Find someone to lend it to you. I said to my own son, "Rich, when you needed money for this shop, I didn't look for someone to lend it to me. I sold my Peterbilt truck, and I gave you every last dime." He fell silent, wiping his hands with a greasy rag. "It's different, Dad. That was an investment. An investment." My son called his father's sacrifice an investment. The next day, I went to see James at his restaurant, Javi's Kitchen, downtown. My second son, the one who as a kid helped me wash the truck on Sundays, and said that when he grew up, he was going to drive just like his dad. Now, he was the owner of a restaurant that was always packed, with red checkered tablecloths and the smell of barbecue that you could sense from the street. When I arrived, he was joking with a table of diners, making them laugh with his stories. When he saw me, the smile disappeared from his face. He approached with that look of, "What does the old man want now?" "Javi, I need $200 for my medication. The doctor says it's urgent." He didn't even stop counting the money from the cash register. "Dad, every day it's hundreds of expenses. The meat, the vegetables, the cook's salaries. Maybe next month." Next month. Those words burned inside me. I reminded him how I sold my Peterbilt to give him $120,000 to open that restaurant. That was years ago, Dad. Things are tough now. Tough. For him, who was serving plates that cost $200, things were tough to give $100 to his sick father. I called Mary on the phone because she lives in the wealthy part of Los Angeles, married to an engineer who drives a brand new SUV. "Oh, Dad, what bad luck. Right now we are doing a kitchen remodel. It's like $50,000. Ask my brothers." $50,000 for a new kitchen, but not $100 for her father's kidneys. Mary, for whom I threw that dream wedding at the Grand Ballroom, with an $8,000 dress and a 6-piece band. Mary, who danced the father-daughter waltz with me and told me I was the best dad in the world. But the hardest blow was given to me by Beatrice, my baby, my pride, the one who even became a lawyer. I went to her elegant office in downtown Los Angeles, with her glass desk and her secretary who made me wait as if I were just any client. When she finally received me, she was impeccable in her $3,000 business suit, with those glasses that made her look very intellectual. "Dad, why are you going to a private doctor? They treat you for free at the community clinic. Don't waste money on expensive consultations." She spoke to me as if I were a silly child who didn't understand things. Beatrice, for whom I worked double shifts to pay for Stanford Law School. Her degree cost me $100,000. I even sold the land my grandfather left me. A small piece of earth in the old town where my own father is buried. My daughter. The doctor at the clinic told me the appointment with the specialist is not for another 3 months. By then, I'll be worse off. She shrugged with that coldness that lawyers learn. "Dad, don't be dramatic. 3 months is nothing. In the meantime, watch what you eat. 4 children, brother. 4 grown adults. With prosperous businesses, with comfortable lives, and none of them could spare $100 to help their sick father. $100. What they spend on one dinner at a restaurant. That night, I sat in the kitchen of my house. At the same table where we ate breakfast thousands of mornings when they were children. The house was so silent that I could hear my heart beating irregularly from high blood pressure. I looked at the photos on the wall. Richard at his first communion. James graduating from high school. Mary's wedding. Beatrice the day she received her law degree. In all the photos I was there, smiling proudly, sometimes carrying the little ones, always present for the important moments of their lives. Where were they now that I needed them? Richard counting bills in his successful shop. James serving crowded tables at his restaurant. Mary choosing tiles for her new kitchen. Beatrice reviewing $1-million contracts in her office with a view of the city, all busy with their prosperous lives, built on the sacrifices of an old truck driver who was now a nuisance with his health problems. I stayed up very late, feeling my feet swell more, how the back pain became more intense. For the first time in my life, I understood what it means to be truly alone. Not just without company, but abandoned by those who should love you most. 4 children who had received everything from me. And when it was my turn to need, they closed the doors in my face. That morning, while the pain kept me awake, I made a decision that would change everything. If my children could not find $400 among the 4 of them to save their father, I was going to find the money to save myself. And may God forgive me for what I was about to do. That night I stayed awake in the kitchen, drinking chamomile tea from that box that I still kept from when my Clara bought it at the market. The hot water calmed my trembling hands a little, but it couldn't soothe the thoughts that tormented me. Where did I go wrong? At what moment did the children to whom I gave my whole life become so cold that they couldn't give me even $100? I closed my eyes and saw myself at 35 years old, driving my Peterbilt on the Interstate 40 at 3 in the morning. It was 1989, and Richard was barely 10 years old. He always waited up for me when I arrived from my trips, running to the door as soon as he heard the roar of the truck's engine. "Dad, what did you bring?" he would shout with those bright eyes of excitement. I always brought him something. A toy car from Detroit, some saltwater taffy from Atlantic City, sometimes just a pretty little stone I found on some beach during the stops. My dad is a truck driver, he would proudly tell his school friends. In those years, I worked 14 days a month on the road, sleeping in the truck cab, eating at diners, where a plate of eggs and hash browns cost $15, and I only ordered toast for $3 to save every penny for the family. My bed was that reclining seat. My bathroom was the gas stations. My office those infinite miles of asphalt under the scorching sun. While I was on the roads, Clara raised the 4 children alone. She washed clothes by hand in the backyard sink. She cooked on that wood stove we bought secondhand. She took care of the children when they got sick. She helped them with their homework. Every weekend when I arrived, I gave her my entire paycheck, every last cent. I only kept money for diesel and the cheapest possible food on the road. I remember perfectly the day James got pneumonia. It was 1995. He was barely 12 years old. We spent 3 days watching him get worse, with that cough that tore at his chest and the fever that wouldn't go down. At the community clinic, they told us we had to wait 2 weeks for an appointment with the specialist. Clara cried, "Robert, the boy is going to die waiting." We went to a private clinic where the doctor told us the treatment would cost $5,000. $5,000. It was more than I earned in a month. But I saw my son choking on that bed. I heard my wife begging me to do something, and I didn't think twice. I sold my gold watch, that Seiko that I had been given for 15 accident-free years at the trucking company. I took extra shifts for 3 weeks straight, driving up to 18 hours a day, sleeping 2 hours at the rest stops. James was cured, and when I saw him running around the yard again, I thought, you spare nothing for your children. When Mary turned 15, she dreamed of a party like the ones in the movies. I had saved for 2 years, but I only had $15,000. The girl wanted the grand ballroom at the Hilton Hotel. An 8-piece band, a designer dress. Everything cost $40,000. "Dad, it's once in a lifetime." She pleaded with me with those eyes she inherited from her mother. I went to the bank and took out a loan at 24% interest. I paid that debt for 3 years. But I saw my princess dancing the waltz with me in her white dress like a cloud, and I thought it was worth every dollar. Then, it was Richard's turn with his dream of owning a repair shop. "Dad, I know the business. I have clients looking for me. I just need $80,000 to start." $80,000. My 1989 Peterbilt truck. My faithful companion for so many miles. It was worth exactly that. I sold it without thinking twice. "It's for my son's future," I told the buyer. Richard cried when I signed the papers. "Dad, someday I'm going to pay you back with interest." He never did. James also had his dreams. He wanted his own restaurant. He said that home-style comfort food sold well in downtown Omaha. He needed $120,000. I no longer had a truck to sell. But I had my severance pay from 25 years of working for the company. Everything, down to the last dime, I gave to my second son. Dad, you're going to be proud of me. He promised me the day he opened Javi's Kitchen. And yes, I was proud. Until today, when he couldn't find $200 for his father's medicine. But the one who cost me the most was Beatrice, my baby, the smartest of the four. She wanted to be a lawyer. Dad, the public university's teaching isn't good. At Stanford, they train real lawyers. But the degree cost $100,000. $100,000. I was already 55 years old. My back hurt more and more from carrying so many sacks and driving long distances. The doctor had told me I should look for quieter work, but it was my daughter's dream. I sold the land my grandfather had left me in the old town. A piece of land where I planned to build a small house for my old age. It was the only family inheritance I had left. But I exchanged it for Beatrice's future. I worked double shifts for 4 years to maintain the house while she studied. I saw her graduate with honors, get a job at a major law firm in Los Angeles, buy her first car. My daughter is a lawyer, I boasted to all the neighbors. The greatest pain came in 2018, when I decided to build the second floor of the house. All 4 children were already living on their own. But I was thinking about the grandchildren who would come, about family Christmases, about having space for everyone to gather. Mr. Jones, the neighborhood carpenter, helped me on weekends. I carried 100-pound bags of cement, climbed ladders with bricks, mixed mortar under the relentless sun. My back killed me every night. "Why are you killing yourself like that, old man?" Clara would ask me while rubbing my back with alcohol. "It's for the kids, my love. They'll come here with their families. It's going to be their inheritance." What irony, brother. Now that I want to sell that house to afford my treatment, it turns out the inheritance does matter to them. My Clara's last months of life were the hardest. Diabetes was consuming her little by little. She was losing weight, her feet were swelling. She could no longer cook like before. The medications cost $1,800 a month, expensive medicines that insurance did not cover, but which the private doctors said were necessary to keep her alive a little longer. The children came to visit her from time to time. Richard arrived in his new pickup. He stayed for 30 minutes. He asked, "How is Mom?" and rushed off because he had work. James brought food from his restaurant, but he never asked how much the medicines cost. Mary called from Los Angeles. She sent expensive flowers, but never money for the treatment. Beatrice, with her shiny law degree, came on Sundays to talk to her mother about legal cases. But she also didn't offer to help with medical expenses. I spent half of my pension keeping alive the woman who had been my partner for 40 years. I never complained. I never told the children I needed help. I thought it was my obligation as a husband. As the man of the house, they had their own families, their own expenses. Why worry them? The last day Clara was conscious, she grabbed my hand with the strength she still had left and told me something I didn't understand until now. "Robert, you gave everything to the children. Now think about yourself." I thought she was delirious from the medication. "Don't talk nonsense, Clara. The children will always be there for us." She shook her head sadly. "No, old man. They already have their lives. You deserve to live yours too." Now, sitting in this empty kitchen where we had so many family breakfasts, where we celebrated birthdays and Christmases, where we planned the future of each of our children, I finally understand my wife's wisdom. I gave them everything I had and everything I didn't have. I sold my truck, my watch, my land, my health, my dreams. I financed their businesses, their studies, their weddings, their whims. but I never taught them to give, only to receive. When I was a child, my father used to tell me, "Son, you don't have children so they can support you, but to give them the best you can." I misunderstood that lesson. I thought it meant giving everything, sacrificing everything, until you were left with nothing. I never taught them that love is also shown with reciprocity, with gratitude, with being present when the one who gave their whole life needs something back. 4 successful, prosperous children with flourishing businesses built on my sacrifices. And when their sick father asks them for $100 for medicine that could save his life, everyone has excuses. Everyone has expenses more important than the health of the man who gave them everything. That morning, while the kidney pain kept me awake and my legs swelled more and more, I understood that the time had come to do what Clara had asked me to do. Think about myself. If they couldn't find $400 among the 4 of them to help their father, I was going to find a way to take care of myself and let the ungrateful children fend for themselves without the inheritance that now concerns them so much. On the 3rd day, after my 4 children denied me their help, I sat on the concrete bench in front of the house of Mr. Peterson, my 72-year-old neighbor. My legs hurt so much that I could barely keep them straight, and I felt shame fighting desperation in my chest. Mr. Peterson was watering his red roses with that green hose, which I myself helped him connect 2 years ago, when he moved to the neighborhood after becoming a widower. "What's wrong, friend Robert?" he asked me when he saw my defeated face. Mr. Peterson was always an observant man, one of those who realize when something is wrong without needing many words. I told him everything. The consultation with Dr. Miller, the kidney diagnosis, the expensive medicines, and how each of my children had found excuses not to help me with even $100. Mr. Peterson dropped the hose on the ground, took off his straw hat, and was silent for a long time, shaking his head from side to side. Then he went into his house without saying a word. I thought he was annoyed by my story, that maybe it was too much for a man who had only known me for a few years. But 5 minutes later, he came out with an old manila envelope and placed it in my hands. "Here, don't be ashamed. Do you remember when you helped me with those 3 moves? For free, without charging me a single dollar? You always told me. Neighbors don't charge, Mr. Peterson." The envelope had $1,000 in wrinkled bills, probably his life savings. Those bills burned my hands more than if they had been embers from hell. There I was, a 68-year-old man who for 25 years had been the one to solve the problems of others, receiving help from a neighbor because my own children had turned their backs on me. "Mr. Peterson, I will pay you back as soon as my pension arrives," I told him with a broken voice. He put his hand on my shoulder. "Robert, when you help from the heart, you don't expect to be paid back. You helped me when I needed it. Now, I'm helping you. That's how it should be among decent people." I went straight to the CVS pharmacy on the main avenue with those $1,000 burning in my pocket like a brand of fire. The pharmacist was a young woman of about 20 years old, with that kind smile they give when attending to old people. I showed her Dr. Miller's prescription, and she grabbed the boxes of medicines one by one. The kidney pills, the vitamins, the blood pressure capsules. "That will be $2,847, sir," she told me with her sweet voice. Almost all the money Mr. Peterson had lent me. I paid with those wrinkled bills, and when she gave me the change, I was left with barely $150. The girl helped me put everything in a white plastic bag. "Get well soon, sir. Don't forget to take them as the doctor says." On the bus ride back home, I was looking at that bag of medicine on my lap and thinking, this is for the rest of the life I have left. 3 pills in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, 1 at night. Every day until I die. And my children believe that remodeling a kitchen or paying mechanics is more important than keeping their father alive. That night, I walked through my whole house like a ghost, checking his own grave. I started on the first floor, which I built in 1998 when Richard was 18 years old, and dreamed of being a mechanic. I touched the cinder block walls that I myself raised, brick by brick, on weekends after returning from my truck trips. The living room, where we celebrated so many Christmases, where the children opened their gifts while Clara prepared the punch in the kitchen. I went up those stairs that I built in 2008, when my back already hurt, but I wanted to give the children a second floor for when they had their own families. Every step cost me sweat and pain, carrying bags of cement, mixing mortar under the relentless sun in May. "It's for the grandchildren," I would tell Clara when she saw me struggling with the materials. "The children of our children will play here." In the upstairs bathroom, the blue tiles that I laid with my own hands are still there, cutting each piece with that cutter that Mr. Jones the carpenter lent me. I cut my fingers several times learning to use that machine, but I wanted it to be perfect. In the built-in closets of the bedrooms, I measured and cut every board myself. The balcony overlooking the Rocky Mountains, where I thought my grandchildren would run someday. While I told them stories of my road trips, the walls are full of photographs that I now see with different eyes. Richard in his elementary school uniform, smiling toothlessly because his front teeth had fallen out. James at his high school graduation, with that look of pride because he had gotten good grades. Mary's wedding at the grand ballroom. She was beautiful in her white dress, me in my black suit that took me 2 years to pay for, dancing the waltz while the band played the wedding march. The photo of Beatrice the day she graduated from Stanford Law School hurt me especially. There is my girl with her cap and gown. I am by her side, swollen with pride. Both of us smiling as if we had conquered the world. That photo cost me $100,000 and the sale of my grandfather's land. But that day, I thought I was the luckiest man in the world to have a professional daughter. But now, I look at those photos and I understand that they were proofs of my naivety, not of my love. I thought that affection was measured in sacrifices, that the more I gave, the more they would love me. I believed that children automatically become grateful for everything they receive from their parents. I was completely wrong, brother. I spoiled them by giving them everything without teaching them to value what they received. In Richard's old room, his first bicycle is still there. A red Trek I bought him when he turned 8 years old. I remember that day perfectly. He was jumping with excitement, hugging me tightly, promising me that when he grew up he would buy me a car. "Thank you, Dad. You are the best dad in the world." Where is that boy who admired me? Where did that innocence go? Where is the 12-year-old James who helped me wash the truck on Sundays? Who told me that when he grew up he would be a driver like his dad to travel all over America? Where is the 15-year-old Mary who hugged me and swore I was the best father in the world? Where is the Beatrice who promised me that when she was a lawyer, she would defend me against the world? Those children died at some point and were replaced by 4 selfish adults who only know how to receive, but not to give. Who see their father as an annoyance when he needs help, but who remember the family estate when that father decides to take care of himself. On the 4th day, after a night where I barely slept from the pain and indignation, I made the most important decision of my life. I walked to the main square in Omaha, where the Midwest Realty office is located. Mrs. Clark, a woman in her 50s with dyed blonde hair and pearl earrings, received me very kindly when I told her I wanted to sell my house. "Let's see, Mr. Stevens. Let me check the area." She took out some maps and some big books with prices. 2-story house, 3,000 square feet of land, solid construction on Lincoln Street. I can easily get you $920,000. It's a good location. It sells fast. $920,000. More money than I had ever seen together in my entire life. I asked her for a week to think about it, but my decision was already made. What I did was call each of my children to give them one last chance. Not because I needed them, but because I wanted to confirm what I already knew. That they didn't care about their sick father. Rich, I'm going to sell the house. This is your last chance to help me with the medicine. His response was typical. Oh, Dad, don't be dramatic. Don't sell the house. You might still need it. I explained that I needed the money for my treatment. That without the medicine, I could die. Dad, you always exaggerate. There are surely cheaper medicines at the clinic. James answered just as coldly. Dad, the house is our childhood memory. How can you sell it? I told him that memories don't pay for medicine, that I needed to live, not just remember. But Dad, we all grew up there. It's unfair that you sell it without asking us. Mary cried on the phone as if it were the end of the world. Dad, that house is your grandchildren's inheritance. How am I going to explain to them that Grandpa sold the family home? I reminded her that when I paid for her $60,000 wedding, she didn't think about saving for her future children. It's different, Dad. A wedding is once in a lifetime. But the one that hurt the most was Beatrice. With that lawyer's coldness she had learned to use to defend herself from feelings. Dad, this is emotional blackmail. Don't make hasty decisions that you will later regret. Emotional blackmail. My own daughter accused me of blackmailing her because I wanted to pay for my medical treatment. Inheritance. Childhood memories. Emotional blackmail. When their sick father asked them for $100 to stay alive, none of those things mattered to them. But now that I decided to take care of myself, suddenly the family home became sacred, untouchable, part of their estate. That night, I didn't sleep, but not out of doubt, but out of relief. For the first time in months, I felt like I had control over my life, that I wasn't dependent on the goodwill of 4 ungrateful people. The next morning, I returned to Mrs. Clark, and I signed the contract. The buyers are a young couple, the Ramirez family, with 2 small children who reminded me of my children when they were innocent. I only asked them for one thing, that they wouldn't cut down the lemon tree I planted in the garden the day Clara turned 48 years old. 20 years ago. That tree has borne sweet fruit all these years, unlike the 4 children I raised in that house. 3 weeks later, on October 15th, 2023, I found myself sitting in the notary's office of Mr. Black on Independence Avenue, signing the papers that would change my life forever. My hands. Those same hands that had driven the steering wheel of my Peterbilt for thousands of miles. That had carried sacks of cement to build the house I was now selling. They trembled slightly when I put my signature on the last document. Mr. Black, an elegant man in his 50s with a well-groomed mustache, handed me the check. $920,000. Never in my life had I seen so much money together. It was more than I earned in 10 years driving a truck. More than I saved in my entire life of sacrifices. But how strange it feels, brother. I lost the house where I lived for 25 years, where my grandchildren were born, where I buried my wife. But for the first time in decades, I felt free. The buyers, the Ramirez couple, were a young couple in their 30s. He worked for a telecommunications company. She was an elementary school teacher. They had 2 small children running around the office while we signed the papers. Mr. Ramirez shook my hand firmly. Thank you, Mr. Stevens. We are going to take very good care of your house. His wife, a dark-haired woman with a sweet smile, assured me. We are not going to touch the lemon tree, I promise you. My children are going to grow up eating those lemons. Seeing them, with that excitement shining in their eyes, I remembered myself when I bought that land in 1988. I also had that same hope, those same dreams of building something lasting for my family. The difference is that they may have better luck with their children than I had with mine. That same afternoon, I went straight to the Garden Homes subdivision, a new development on the outskirts of Omaha. Mrs. Miller, the apartment owner, was a widow in her 60s, with gray hair pulled back in a bun and those glasses that ladies use to read. She showed me the apartment. 485 square feet, a single large room with an integrated kitchen, full bathroom, and a small balcony overlooking the mountains. Mr. Stevens, quiet people live here. There are 2 retired teachers, a retired nurse, a gentleman who worked for Exxon, all very respectful. She explained as she opened the windows to let in the fresh air. $4,500 a month, plus utilities. Does that seem okay to you? It was a palace compared to the truck cabs where I slept so many years on the road. For the first time in my life, I bought new furniture thinking only of myself. A twin bed with an orthopedic mattress for my aching back. A small table with 2 chairs for a quiet breakfast. A comfortable armchair where I could watch the news and rest my swollen legs. Refrigerator, stove, television. Everything chosen by me, for me. Without asking anyone what they thought. Without calculating if I had enough for other things. At the bank, I opened a savings account and deposited most of the money. $50,000 I set aside specifically for a full year of medicine. Another $100,000 for any medical emergency that might arise. The rest, $770,000, I put into a certificate of deposit at 7% annually. That was going to give me almost $5,000 a month in interest, in addition to my pension. For the first time in my life, I was going to live without worrying about money. The children found out about the sale a week later, when Richard went to visit me at the old house and found an unknown family living there. Mrs. Ramirez kindly explained that they had bought the property, and Richard stood on the sidewalk like an idiot, unable to believe what was happening. My new home phone rang at 8 in the evening. It was Richard, with that voice that sounded like he was crying from anger. Dad, how could you do this? That house was our home. We all grew up there. You should have consulted us. I poured myself a glass of cold water, sat down in my new armchair, and answered him with all the calm in the world. Rich, when you needed $80,000 for your shop, you didn't consult me about whether I wanted to sell my truck. You simply asked me for the money, and I gave it to you. Now, I needed money for my medicine. I asked you for help, and you told me no. So I sold the house, and I helped myself. He was silent for a moment. Then he shouted, "But that house was worth much more than $80,000. It was our legacy," I replied. Exactly, son. It was worth much more. And I used all that value to buy myself health and peace of mind. Something you weren't willing to give me for $100. The next day, James came to my apartment. I had never seen him cry since he was a child. But there he was, with red, swollen eyes, standing at my door like a lost soul. Dad, you destroyed the family. Where are we going to gather for Christmas? Where are my children going to play when they are born? How could you be so selfish? I invited him in. I offered him a coffee, and I explained patiently, Javi, the family wasn't destroyed when I sold the house. It was destroyed when the 4 of you decided that your sick father's medicine wasn't worth even $100 from each of you. As for Christmases, you have a prosperous restaurant. You can rent a nice room, And the children you haven't had yet can play in public parks, just like I played when I was a kid. Mary didn't come to see me, but she did call me furious. Dad, you are selfish. You took the house from your grandchildren. How am I going to explain to them that their grandfather sold the family house because of your whim? For the first time in many years, I raised my voice with one of my children. Mary, your children haven't even been born, and you already have them dividing up inheritances. When you got married, I paid for a $60,000 wedding without asking you if you had saved anything for your future children. When I needed $200 to stay alive, you told me your remodel was more important. Now I have $920,000 to live with dignity for the time I have left. But the one that hurt the most was Beatrice. She arrived accompanied by her husband, Mr. Thomas, the thin, unpleasant guy I had always disliked. The two came with that lawyer attitude that believes they can fix everything with laws and lawsuits. Mr. Stevens, my daughter's husband said to me, we have reviewed the sale documentation. We believe there are grounds to challenge it. A man of your age, under medical and emotional stress, may have made hasty decisions that do not reflect his true will. Beatrice nodded her head, as if she agreed that her own father was mentally unstable. Dad, we can prove that the sale was below the real market price, or that you were not in your right mind when you signed. My daughter told me, the one who studied at the most expensive university in Los Angeles with my savings. I looked at the two of them, so sure of themselves, so convinced that they could steal from me the only act of dignity I had done in years. And I told them, Beatrice, you are a lawyer, you know the law, but you forgot to learn about conscience. The house was sold legally. All the documents are in order. The price was fair according to the official appraisal. But you are right about one thing. It was an unequal sale. Unequal like the love I gave you and the love you gave me. 2 months later, Richard and James indeed sued me. They hired Mr. Wilson, a criminal defense lawyer from Los Angeles, who charged them $30,000 just to review the case. $30,000, brother. Those same sons of guns who couldn't find $100 for their father's medicine. They did find $30,000 to fight their father. The day of the hearing, in the family court in Omaha, I saw them walk in elegantly dressed, serious, as if they were the victims of a great injustice. Richard in his starched shirt and blue tie, James in his Sunday black suit. Behind them came Mr. Wilson with his leather briefcase and his polished shoes. The judge was an older man, Judge Davis, about 60 years old, with a white beard and those thick glasses of people who have read a lot. He patiently listened to the arguments of my son's lawyer. That I had sold under emotional pressure. That the price had been low. That my children had rights over the family property. When it was my turn to speak, I stood up slowly because my knees hurt, and I said, Your Honor, I built that house with my hands for 15 years. I paid for it with the sweat of 25 years of driving a truck on the roads of America. It was my house. It was in my name. And I sold it because I needed money to stay alive. These gentlemen who are suing me never put a single dollar into building it. But now that I sold it to pay for my medical treatment, it turns out it was their legacy. The judge reviewed all the documents. The deeds, the appraisals, the contracts, the medical certificates that proved I was perfectly sane when I made the decision. Finally, he ruled. The lawsuit is dismissed as inadmissible. Mr. Robert Stevens was and is the legal owner of the dwelling. He was in full possession of his mental faculties. The sale price corresponds to the market value. There is no legal defect in the transaction. After the hearing, the judge approached me privately. Mr. Stevens, I am also a father of 4 children, all professionals. I perfectly understand what you did. Sometimes children forget who their parents are. His words comforted me more than winning the lawsuit. In those months, I experienced mixed feelings, brother. On the one hand, a deep sadness upon realizing that the 4 children I had raised with so much love had become my enemies. On the other hand, a feeling of freedom that I had not experienced in decades. For the first time in 25 years, I was making decisions thinking about myself. Not about pleasing ungrateful children who only knew how to ask, but never to give. December of 2023 became the month that changed the entire course of my new life. My health began to improve in a way that even I didn't expect. The medicines that I could now buy, without begging anyone, began to do their job. My blood pressure stabilized at normal numbers. The swelling in my legs almost completely disappeared. And those terrible back pains that kept me bent over like a fishhook now only bothered me occasionally. At my monthly appointment with Dr. Miller, he checked my blood tests with that surprised look that doctors get when something goes better than expected. Mr. Stevens, these results are much better than 3 months ago. Your kidneys are responding excellently to the treatment. What changed in your life? I thought for a moment, and I told him the plain truth. Doctor, I got rid of the biggest stress I had, the feeling of guilt towards my ungrateful children. The doctor took off his glasses and looked at me with that wisdom that comes from years of treating the sick. Mr. Stevens, stress is the #1 enemy of the kidneys in people your age. Emotional pressure can cause more damage than any bacteria or virus. Keep living calmly. Your body is thanking you for it. He was right, brother. For the first time in decades, I slept through the night without waking up worried about other people's problems. In January of 2024, I made a decision that my former acquaintances considered crazy. I got a job. At 68 years old, after selling my house and having money saved, I decided to work part-time as a night security guard at Crystal Plaza, a new shopping center that had been built at the entrance to Omaha. The job was simple. Sitting in a comfortable chair behind a desk with security monitors, watching the cameras that showed all corners of the mall, and doing 2 rounds per shift to verify that the doors were properly locked. They paid me $4,800 a month for working 3 nights a week. It wasn't a lot of money, but I didn't need it either. The important thing was to feel useful again, to have a purpose, not to be a burden to anyone. My co-workers became the family I never had with my own children. Mr. Charles, 64 years old, had been an elementary school teacher for 40 years in a rural school. Mr. Mike, 69, was a former detective who had known all kinds of criminals and dangerous situations. Mr. George, 66, had worked all his life as a mechanic in a Ford garage, until arthritis in his hands forced him to retire. The 4 of us shared the night shifts. We ate dinner together in the mall cafeteria, which they let us use after hours, and little by little, we began to tell each other our life stories. It was incredible, friend. How we had all gone through similar experiences with our children. We had all given everything for them. We had all sacrificed our youth, our health, our savings. And we had all received ingratitude and oblivion in return. Mr. Charles told me his story one night while we were sharing some barbecue sandwiches his wife had brought. Robert, I taught in rural elementary schools for 40 years. I would leave my house at 5 in the morning by mule because there were no roads for cars, and I wouldn't return until night. Every dollar I earned, I saved for the studies of my 3 children. I sent them to the university in the capital. All 3 graduated with important degrees. One is an engineer, another an accountant, the girl is a doctor. He was silent for a moment, slowly chewing his sandwich. Then he continued. All three of them went to live in Canada. They call me once a month, just to tell me they're fine. On Mother's Day, they send me $200 by money transfer, as if that paid for everything I did for them. When my wife got breast cancer, I wrote them letters begging them to come say goodbye to their mother. Do you know what they answered me? That the visa was too expensive, that they couldn't ask for time off work, that they would send me money for the doctor from there. Mr. Mike nodded as he listened. He knew similar stories. Something similar happens to me, brother. I have 4 children. They all live here in America. They all have good jobs. 2 of them don't even speak to me anymore because I denied them money for their whims when they got married. The other 2 only look for me when they need to borrow something. I've seen my grandchildren 3 times in 5 years. And that's because I ran into them by chance on the street. Mr. George, who was the quietest of all, told us. My 2 sons fought over the inheritance before I died. They wanted me to divide up my house and my savings while I was still alive. When I told them I first had to secure my old age, they accused me of being selfish. Now I live alone. They live their lives. And I work here so I don't go crazy with loneliness at home. Those nightly conversations, while we watched the screens that showed empty hallways and closed stores, helped me understand that my situation was not unique. An entire generation of American parents had raised ungrateful children. We had made the same mistake, confusing love with sacrifice, thinking that the more we gave them, the more they would love us. We had forgotten to teach them values like gratitude, reciprocity, respect towards those who gave them life. The problem, Robert, Mr. Charles told me while we drank instant coffee in plastic cups, is that we grew up with the idea that children were to take care of their parents in old age. But we raised our children with the mentality that parents exist to give them everything they ask for. We never taught them that love is shown in both directions. In March of 2024, when I'd been working for 2 months and feeling like new, something happened that I never expected. It was a Saturday morning. I was having a quiet breakfast in my apartment when I heard a knock at the door. I wasn't expecting visitors because my only friends were my co-workers and they knew where I lived. I opened the door and froze. It was Beatrice, but not the successful, cold lawyer who had tried to take my house away 6 months earlier. This woman in front of me looked like another person. Eyes swollen from crying, face haggard as if she had lost weight, hair messy. In her hands, she carried a bouquet of white roses, her mother's favorite flowers. "Dad, can I come in?" she asked me in a voice so low I barely heard her. I stood in the doorway, not knowing what to do. Part of me wanted to close the door in her face after everything she had put me through. Another part of me, the one that had always been a father before anything else, stepped aside to let her in. Beatrice walked in slowly, looking at my small but clean and tidy apartment. She noticed my new table, my comfortable armchair, the television I had bought to watch the news. "It's nice here, Dad. It looks very peaceful. It has good light," she told me. But it was obvious she was nervous, that she didn't know how to start the conversation. I offered her coffee, and we sat down at the table. We were silent for a long time. I was waiting for her to tell me why she had come. She was gathering the courage to speak. Finally, she broke down and began to cry like I hadn't seen her cry since she was a little girl. "Dad, forgive me. I was selfish. An ungrateful daughter. I didn't deserve to have a father like you." Between sobs, she told me what had happened to her in the last few months. Her husband, that stuck-up Mr. Thomas, who I had always disliked. He had left her for a secretary 20 years younger. He had asked her for a divorce and was fighting to keep half of all her assets. The children, 8 and 6 years old, had stayed with her, but the child support he paid was pitiful. Dad, when I was left alone with my children, I understood for the first time what it meant to be responsible for other people who depend completely on you. I remembered how you worked 25 years, day and night, to support the 4 of us and Mom. How you would leave in your truck for weeks, sleeping in the cab, eating the cheapest food so that we would have everything we needed. She wiped her tears with the napkins I had given her, but more kept coming. Dad, yesterday my daughter asked me, Mommy, why don't we see Grandpa Robert anymore? He was so good to me. I didn't know what to answer her. I realized that because of my pride, because of my selfishness, I had deprived my children of the opportunity to know their grandfather. We talked until night fell. Beatrice told me about her life now, waking up at 5:30 to get the children ready, taking them to school, working all day at the firm, picking them up, helping them with homework, making dinner, doing laundry, all alone without anyone's help, trying to be both dad and mom at the same time. Now I understand what my mom went through all those years you were on the road. I understand why she looked so tired when you came home from your trips. I never valued her sacrifice or yours. She told me this, looking me in the eyes, with a sincerity I hadn't seen in any of my children for years. I listened to her carefully, but I didn't rush to forgive her. For months I had suffered because of her coldness, her selfishness, her lack of heart towards her own sick father. I wasn't going to forget that overnight, just because she was also suffering now. Beatrice, I don't hold a grudge against you or against your brothers. But I also don't want to go back to being the bank that everyone runs to when they have problems. If you want us to rebuild our relationship, it has to be on new foundations. Mutual respect, real affection, not just when you need me. She nodded her head. I understand, Dad. I didn't come to ask you for money. I came to ask you for forgiveness and the opportunity to be your daughter again. From that day on, Beatrice began to visit me regularly. She came on weekends with my grandchildren, Sophie and David. The children called me Grandpa Robert, and they sat on my lap to listen to the stories of my road trips, of the towns I had seen, of the adventures I had lived driving a truck all over America. Beatrice insisted on paying for my monthly medication. She wasn't doing it out of guilt, but because she genuinely wanted to take care of me. Dad, let me do this for you. Not out of obligation, but because I love you and I want you to be well. I accepted her help, but with conditions. Only the medicine, honey. Everything else I'll pay for myself. And if at any time you need the money, tell me honestly. Don't sacrifice yourself out of misunderstood pride. When the other 3 children found out that Beatrice had gotten back in touch with me, they tried to do the same, but for the wrong reasons. Richard came to visit me twice, and both times he asked to borrow money to expand his shop. Dad, now that you have money, help your son grow the business. I promise I'll pay you back with interest. I answered him without resentment, but firmly. Rich, when you had money and your father was sick and in need, you didn't want to help him with even $100. Now that things have changed, you come looking for me. It's too late for that, son. James offered me free meals at his restaurant every Sunday. Dad, come every week. I'll cook you whatever you like most, without charging you anything. I thanked him, but explained. Javi, free meals don't replace family love. I have my friends from work. I share my free time with them. Mary tried to soften me up by using her children who hadn't been born yet. Dad, my future children will need to know their grandpa. Don't hold a grudge, I replied. Mary, when I needed your help to stay alive. You didn't think about those imaginary grandchildren. Don't use children who don't exist to manipulate my feelings. In the summer of 2024, when the first anniversary of my Clara's death arrived, I decided to go to the cemetery to bring her flowers. I bought a large bouquet of white roses, her favorites, and took the bus to the municipal cemetery. When I arrived at her grave, I was surprised. Beatrice and the children were there, also with flowers, also remembering her. The four of us stood in front of the gray marbled tombstone where it is engraved. Clara Herrera Stevens, exemplary wife and mother, 1955 to 2021. My grandchildren had never really known their grandmother because when they were very small, she was already very ill. Sophia, the eldest, asked me, "Grandpa, why did Grandma Clara die?" I explained it to her in the simplest way. She was very sick, my dear, but she loved us very much until the last day of her life. David, the youngest, added, "My mommy says Grandma was very good and that she cooked very tasty food." Beatrice took my hand. "Dad, Mom would be very happy that we have reconciled. She always said that family was the most important thing." "You're right, my dear." Clara always believed that love could overcome any problem. But she also knew that true love is shown with actions, not just words. In August, when I turned 69 years old, I decided to do something I had never done in my life: celebrate my birthday the way I wanted. I rented the small room at the community center in my subdivision and invited the people who really mattered to me. Mr. Peterson, my neighbor who had lent me money when I needed it most. My co-workers, Mr. Charles, Mr. Mike, and Mr. George. Some new neighbors who had become my friends. And of course, Beatrice with my grandchildren. It was a simple but joyful party. Mr. Peterson raised his glass of beer and proposed the first toast. To Mr. Stevens, who taught us that dignity is worth more than blood ties, when those ties become chains. Mr. Charles added, to a man who showed us that it's never too late to start living for yourself. That night, watching my real friends laugh and tell stories, seeing Beatrice help me serve the cake, seeing my grandchildren run between the tables, I understood that I had found something I had lost many years ago. Peace. Not the peace that comes from having everything resolved, but the peace that comes from accepting life as it is, and from surrounding yourself with people who love you for who you are, not for what you can give them. When everyone had left and Beatrice was helping me clear the dishes, she told me, "Dad, thank you for giving me a second chance. I promise I won't waste it." I replied, "Honey, we all deserve second chances, but we also deserve to be treated with respect from the first." That night, as I lay down in my comfortable bed in my quiet apartment, I thought about everything that had happened in 1 year. I had lost a house that represented 25 years of work, but I had gained my dignity and my peace of mind. I had lost 3 ungrateful children, but I had recovered a daughter who had learned to value her father. I had lost the illusion of an old age surrounded by a large family, but I had gained an old age surrounded by people who respect and love me. For the first time in decades, I fell asleep without worries, without pain, without resentment, only with the satisfaction of having done the right thing, even though it had been the most difficult thing in my life.